Hey folks, today we're covering Tinto Flavor 24, and today Pavia is going to be talking to us about the Golden Horde. And this is a very interesting one. If you play Crusader Kings 3, we just had the Khans of the Steppe DLC, so it's going to be cool to see how they implement these realms in EU5 versus Crusader Kings. As always, Pavia is going to start here by showing us the opening text. If you do select the Golden Horde, you get a little bit of history about what they've been up to and what you might be doing in the near future as well. Next is the graphical version of this, so you'll see the flag, the realm, what tier they are, what kind of realm they are, and then also the current Khan in this example, and his stats as well. 66, 66, 66. Something tells me that's just placeholder. And then below that, there is some information about the realm as well. So you see the primary culture, obviously Mongolian, the amount of people there are in this realm, and then also the primary religion of this realm. And you can see below that the breakdown of the different cultures and of the different religions as well. So similar to previous ones, although their primary religion is Sunnism, Tengrism is actually the biggest religion in the realm, so it can be different. You can have a very populous realm of one religion, but the actual primary religion is a different one. Depending obviously on what's been going on in their recent history, it can be different. Next, we're going to be showing the initial map when you do start as the Golden Horde, so you can see the mainland that they own, and then also there's a lot of like Eastern Europe that they're going to be interacting with, and they're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. In the next one, you can see the political version of that map. So obviously green for the lands that you own directly. And then there are some vassals and tributes kind of around them. There are some interactions around Muscovy. As I said, that was covered last week. They are going to talk about that again later on in this dev diary. Now they're going to go through some of the structural content we're getting. So the first thing here is the Steppe Horde government type. This is obviously specific to this area of the world. And you can see this enables 2 succession laws, 6 laws, 22 policies, and 3 estate privileges. So they're the things you can kind of use to specialize your realm as you play. And then there's some really intriguing bonuses here. Downgrading to rural settlement cost minus 75%. I imagine this works like Crusader Kings, where if you take over land, you can downgrade it to like nomadic lands. It looks like we're getting some kind of version of that in this as well. The next one is very interesting. Auto-conquer when at war, yes. And then I don't think it's mentioned anywhere what this actually means. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. It must be something related to them being a nomadic realm. Maybe there's some kind of cool mechanics around when you go to war. Like, I don't know, like do your vassals just automatically start conquering? I don't know. Like I say, it's not really mentioned here anywhere what this actually means, but it looks like it might be interesting. The next one is prefer court language to be the common language, plus 10. Can raise, yes. Can raid borders, yes. I mean, that is obviously going to be the case with these. And then Horde Unity change on ruler death, minus 50%, going into those kind of succession crises that happened a lot in these realms. So that's going to be shown again later on as well. The next thing they're going to show are the estates, and they have quite a few estates here. So you've got the crown, you've got the chieftains, you've got the Alama, you've got the traders, you've got the commoners, you've got the dhimmi, and you've also got tribes as well. So this realm has what, like 7 different estates rather than the usual 4 or 5. Obviously, this will change as you progress through the game. You're going to have some of these kind of die off and get removed. Very similar to some of the mechanics you see in Scotland around the clans and things like that. So I imagine, especially like the tribes one, will probably disappear relatively quickly. But we'll see, obviously, once we get to play it. The next thing they're going to show is the Legacy of Chinggis Khan government reform. Cavalry maintenance cost minus 10%. We're going to see a lot of cavalry modifiers in this dev diary. Expected cost of court minus 2%. And then monthly progress towards aristocracy, 0.10. So that's a slight modifier, moving you towards aristocracy. You know, you're the descendant of the Great Khan, and you're going to try keep that going as the Golden Horde. The next thing they're going to show is the tribal host estate privilege. This is for your nobles, as you can see in the top right-hand corner. This is horses output, plus 10%. So, you know, you need those horses. They're going to help you do a lot of warfare. Maybe you can even sell some of them. Is that what the Horde does? Probably in this game, especially with some players. The next one is the share of the spoils estate privilege. This is also for the nobles. This is expected cost of court plus 1%. So kind of negating some of those bonuses we saw earlier. If you do implement this, it will make your court that little bit more expensive. It's only 1% though, probably enough to give away if you want those other modifiers. Next, we're going to be taking a look at the advances. The first one here is the Kipchak Khanate, and this is available in the Age of Traditions culture capacity plus 50%. With the expansion of this realm, you can have a lot of cultures in there, and this is going to help you integrate some of those cultures into your realm, make those people happier, and then also a little bit more productive for you as well. Also, 10% more manpower, making you have those larger armies. Next is Legacy of Joki. Probably mispronouncing that, I do apologize. This is available in the Age of Traditions cavalry maintenance cost minus 20%. So again, leaning into that cavalry side of the gameplay, you're going to see playing as the Golden Horde. The next one is Legacy of the Golden Horde. This is available in the Age of Renaissance, monthly legitimacy 0.10, monthly horde unity plus 0.10. So in the Age of Renaissance, you're still saying, look, I'm the legitimate ruler, and also trying to unify the horde, which is going to help you with a bunch of mechanics as well. So really one you're going to want to pick up in the Renaissance. The next one is Perso-Mongol administration. This is in the Age of Renaissance. Speed of integration plus 25%. So you're building up this huge realm, and then you're trying to integrate it into the actual Golden Horde. Very, very useful, I would think, especially this area of the map. I can imagine control is very difficult to do. So getting these realms integrated and then trying to improve them could be one way to do it. You could keep them as vassals. That could be a more productive way earlier in the game. And then later on, you could integrate them when you have other mechanics to help you with control, help you with that proximity effect. And then you can kind of bring everything together and just have one unified realm, maybe later on in the game. But you can start doing it now if you wanted to. The next one is Tatar Traditions. A lot of T's there. This is cavalry power plus 20% in the Age of Discovery. A lot of horses, a lot of power. They're also cheaper, so you can go raiding, trying to get some borderlands off people as well. And then speaking of horses, they're going to show off some of the unique units that they have. And the first one being horse archers. They do say here they've actually changed this UI a little bit, so you get like a graphical picture of this. If you play Crusader Kings, it's very similar to how the Men-at-Arms UI looks, where you get like an image of the unit and then also the stats below it. It looks like we're getting a similar version of that in EU5 now. They do say some of these just have generic pictures, but in this example, they do have a specific kind of Golden Horde themed one. Funnily enough, in this example, they're called horse archers. None of them are archers, though, in the picture, but anyway, we'll leave it at that. And then they do show off the stats for this unit. The combat performance is very interesting. Grasslands and sparse, plus 20% better performance. I guess showing off the fact that they're from the steppe and making them that little bit better in like steppe terrain that you do encounter. So one thing to keep in mind, they're obviously very bad in mountains and wetland, but they do get that benefit in other places as well. The other special unit they're going to show off here is the auxiliary unit they have access to. And again, that additional art being shown there, although they do say this is more of a generic art picture here than one specific to this area. Even though the unit is special to this realm, it hasn't got a unique piece of art at the moment anyway. And again, these are units you use to feed your army so that they don't take attrition and they're fighting as well as they can be. Once you get those professional armies, you're going to want to pick these up as soon as you can. Make it so your armies are working that little bit better. And as the Golden Horde, they're going to help you to do that. The next thing they're going to show off is some unique buildings. The first one being the Kurultai. Again, if you're coming from Crusader Kings, we just got the Kurultai buildings and things like that. It's very cool how it works there. But in EU5, it is a military building. It gives you monthly manpower plus 50, and you can recruit regiments here as well. You can see the production method, what's required to build it. You're going to build these, and then you're going to have those bigger armies as you do continue. The next thing they're going to show, Caravanserai. This is a trade building. You can see it gives trade advantage 0.5, and then trade capacity plus 1. So you can lean into that trade side of things. Obviously, a very important part of the world when it comes to trade, and you can make some money from that. Maybe you can fund your armies via trade and raiding, and then see how great you can build up the internal side of the Golden Horde as well. And then, as I was talking about earlier, there is a unique mechanic to portray the relationship with this realm with the Russian principalities, and that is the Tatar Yoke, which is an international organization. We've seen this system being used in a lot of areas of the game, and it is once again being used here. So you can see forbidden unjustified wars against other members, yes. The leader of the Tatar Yoke gets monthly prestige 0.10, monthly tribal cohesion 0.10, and then the other members who aren't the leader, they get a monthly development reduction actually from this. It looks like a very small number. I wonder if that is going to get balanced before launch. You can see the 40 members, the Golden Horde at the top because they're leading it, and then all the Eastern Europe principalities that are under the control of the Tatars. There's obviously going to be some events around this, and they're going to talk about that in a second. The first thing they're going to show off, though, is the Tatar Yoke IO kind of map version. And you can see here the Golden Horde, Muscovy, which is the head of the principalities, and then the rest of the principalities that are inside of this IO as well. And then you can see that again here, the Tatar Yoke UI. You can see the current Khan, his stats, the Overlord, the Grand Prince of Vladimir. That is the principality that is like the head one that takes all the tribute and then sends it off to the Horde. Has some cool mechanics around it as well. And then the other 40 members as well that are part of this. You can obviously get more or less of these, but they are the starting ones that you will have as the Golden Horde. And then they do explain that a little bit more here. So the first one is the Tatar Overlord. The Tatar Overlord is the Lord and Master of the dreaded Tatar Yoke. And then the next one is that Grand Prince of Vladimir. This does give you some bonuses. So the monthly development 0.0025, rural migration attraction 0.10, towns and cities migration attraction 0.10. So this is to show off you're like one above the rest of the principalities. And as that more important Grand Prince of Vladimir, what do? Well, you collect the tribute from the regular members and you send it to the Tatar overlord. So you can see that here, Tatar yoke payments. So you can see the payment here, the Grand Principality of Muscovy. This is who sends it directly to the Golden Horde. And then the payers, these are the other principalities that send it to Muscovy, who then send it on. And there are some mechanics where you can, fiddle the books a little bit and keep some of that money, try build up some funds so you can get your independence. And then on the other side of it, obviously, is the payment. So you can see the payees, the Golden Horde, that is who's getting that money. And then the payers, in this example, because you are playing as the Golden Horde, you just see Muscovy as the payers. You don't need to see the rest, because as we've just seen, they send it to Muscovy first. And then as I was saying, you can choose as Muscovy, the Grand Prince of Vladimir, to not send everything to the Tatars. You can see that in the screenshot here. In this example, it's at 100%. I'm sending everything to the Golden Horde as I should. That reduces my gold, but it also gives me some prestige because I am following the rules, I guess, and sending them what I should do. If any of the members, however, including the Grand Prince, pay less than 50% of the capacity, it will get a development reduction, portraying the small-scale raids conducted by the Horde to bring the princes in line. If the budget is over 50%, the members will get bonus to diplomats, and the Grand Prince will get that prestige that we just saw. There are some ways, I guess, you would want to mess with this. If you need some money, you might short-term do it, I guess, and then put it back up to 100. And then finally, as part of the Tatar yoke, there are a couple of other actions allowing any member of the Tatar yoke to declare war to break it. And then also you can go up and say, hey, I should be the Grand Prince of Vladimir. Muscovy, they're not giving you all the money. They're just generally not very good. Maybe I've conquered them. Maybe you make me the Grand Prince and I'll be the most important of the princes in the short term at least. And you can see that on the screen at the moment. Break the Tatar yoke, request title elevation, and then they break this down a little bit more. So you can see here, it is time for our people to rise up against the oppression of the Tatars and throw off the shackles that have been laid upon the Eastern Slavic people. We will declare war against the Golden Horde. And then the second one, request title elevation. The current Grand Prince is no longer fit to rule. We should take their place, basically. And you go and ask the Golden Horde, make me the Grand Prince of Vladimir. That is all the structural content they're going to show off today. As they always say, there's a bunch more in the game. This is just a portion of it to give us an idea of how this is going to play out. Next, they're going to show us the events and I guess like character content that is coming. So the first one here is the Steppe Horde succession crisis. A lot of succession stuff going on in this realm. The death of our previous ruler has left the Golden Horde in a precarious situation. Bring me this man's head on a pike. Somebody's trying to rebel up and say, hey, I should be the Khan. And you're saying, no, thank you. It is going to be me and you're going to die. So maybe you shouldn't have said that. And then if you do choose that option, a number of the provinces are dissatisfied with our rule and will join the cause of this person. And that also reduces the stability. And this will trigger that Horde civil war. This is obviously using the disaster system. Crown power minus 20%. A state satisfaction equilibrium minus 2.5, which isn't a lot actually. For a civil war, I would have thought that would have been much higher, but that is what it currently is. Monthly control 0.5% worse. Discipline minus 10%, that is going to affect you in those battles. Monthly Horde Unity, weirdly 0.05 better. Horde Unity change on ruler death plus 50, and that is going to play out. And then you can also see the requirements for this to activate if you do fall into one of these civil wars. And then as it's using the disaster system, it does use that UI as well. You can see that here, the Horde civil war, the country being the Golden Horde, the current Khan, and then the upstart that's trying to kick you out. He's actually better in many ways. Maybe you'd want this guy to win, and then your realm will potentially be that little bit better. As I always say through these, this isn't Crusader Kings, so although you would lose this war, the game wouldn't end. You would just have this person leading instead of like you, if you want to think of it that way. So it could be actually better for you to lose this war and get that better leader, and then potentially his descendants can be better as well. So it is one thing to think about when you are playing this out, and very similar to other disasters, every month, and this is very similar to EU4, there's a chance for events to happen, and then you will play out those events as well. And they're going to show off some of those in this dev diary. So one of the events that can happen, which usually doesn't have the best of outcomes, is the Surgut Rebellion. The conflict between the Khan and the Pretender has put a dent in the efforts to centralize the Golden Horde. The warriors of Surgut demand their autonomy independently from the Khan and threaten to rebel if we do not oblige. We bow to no one, or we have no other choice. If you choose the top option, you get 5 Horde Unity, and every population in this area joins the rivaling warlord of Golden Horde faction. If you choose the other option, we have no other choice. You'll lose 10 Horde Unity. The societal value will change towards decentralization instead of centralization, and then a bunch of areas that are part of this will lose 20% control as well. So you're probably not going to want to do this. I guess if your army's weak, you might have to do this, or maybe you just want to play out a different version and allow this to happen. The next event is the murder of the Khan. I wonder who did this. A mere moment of carelessness, a split second of inattention, the flame of life gets snuffed out in an instant. This is the fate of the Khan, whose life has been taken with an arrow to the throat by the upstart pretenders. And the outcome of this is such are the rules of the steppe, and the Khan dies, you lose stability. The next event is still based on this rebel, unsecured borders. Usually the borders of the Golden Horde are regularly patrolled by our mounted scouts. However, the chaos caused by the ambitions of the upstart undermine our border security. Reinforce the patrols, or we can live without it. Again, if you choose this option, minus 10 Horde unity, minus 10 prestige, and then interestingly, every neighbouring country will become aware of our current weak position. I wonder what that does. All they say is neighbouring countries may take this opportunity to attack you. I guess maybe you just get an event that pops up and says, hey, they're a little bit weaker, why don't you attack them? I don't think there's anything outside of that. And then obviously with the Khan dead, the pretender might reach 100%, an event will fire, given the option to either accept their demands or escalate into a full civil war. So you can see here a new Khan emerges. As we've seen from the previous events, the current Khan is actually dead. With the sudden death of the Khan, the Golden Horde witness a quick chain of bloody succession. Although the Khan is the rightful ruler by law, the rebel upstart tries to exploit the chaos of the succession, and you can choose only over our dead, rotting bodies. So you can say, no, this guy isn't taken over, we're going to keep fighting this out. Or you can say, so are the laws of the steppe once again, and then he takes over as the ruler of your realm. Again, keep it in mind, you're playing as the realm in EU5, you're not playing as the dynasty. If you're coming from Crusader Kings, that is one thing you've got to remember. Like, if you're playing Crusader Kings, this would look bad, but it isn't necessarily bad, depending on how you want to play out your realm. And then the next thing you see is this civil war that's broken out. I guess during this happening, the principalities might take the opportunity to rebel against you as well. So if this does happen, you will have to be careful in the civil war. And then obviously one of the sides is going to be victorious. And then you can see here, victory of the Khan, the long struggle with our bitter enemy has ended, the Golden Horde prevails, and the authority of the Khan is restored. But obviously this is the steppe, so one warlord is defeated, but a new one aspires to continue his efforts, and a new person is going to try rebel against you as well. Another vulture who tries to claim the throne is the option you can choose. But then you see in the next screenshot, rise of a new warlord. The rival has found his end. However, the very real threat remains nonetheless, as the uneasy warriors rally behind a new aspiring warlord's banner, and this whole cycle just continues. No succession crisis finds an easy end. We gain Horde unity by 5, and then a new rivaling warlord of the Golden Horde starts. And then this whole system just keeps going, at least for a little while. But obviously you can end this cycle of civil wars, and once you've restored both stability and Horde unity, the disaster will finally come to an end, and you'll get this event, End of the Steppe Horde Succession Crisis. At long last, the period of infighting and civil wars has ended. Under the firm rulership of the Khan, the Golden Horde has stabilized into a realm that can withstand the tests of time. I think that's from a different game. But anyway, long live the Khan. Based on our crown power, you will get the following benefits. In this example, plus 15 stability. So I guess if you keep your crown power very high, you'll get even more stability. If your crown power is terrible, you're not going to get as much from this. But that will end the cycle of civil wars, at least for now. And with that, that is the end of the Dev Diary this week. Let me know what you think about this. Again, if you're coming from Crusader Kings, what do you think about the mechanics? I think this looks like it's going to be very interesting to play through. And then the cool mechanics with the Russian principalities, all those kind of things you're going to have going on to keep you busy. And then you're going to be able to raid. You're going to be able to have those automated conquests. Let me know what you think that actually means. As they do say here, and as we've had with most Wednesdays, it is going to be a religious-focused Tinto Talks. And it is going to be all around the Islamic religion, the mechanics around that, and what you can get up to as those realms. As always, hit that like button if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm covering all the Dev Diaries, the Tinto Flavor, the Tinto Talks, and everything else around this game up to launch. And I also cover Crusader Kings in a very similar manner. So if you do enjoy it, subscribe. But we'll leave it there for today, and I'll see you all next time.